I have the honor of introducing Leon Humberstone, who's from the Independent British Vape Trade Association. So he's going to speak for a little while, and then we're going to do some Q&A. So if anyone would like to pick his brain, you are more than welcome to, and we love hard-hitting questions. So welcome to the Vaper Expo.
Thank you very much, Ashley. So anyone who is milling around in this general area, if you are involved in the vape trade, if you have a vape store, if you have a vape business, if you have any involvement, if you work in a vape store, please come and listen to us. You want to hear what I'm going to be talking about. It's really, really important. We're getting a few, and that makes people drift in because it's B2B day, and that means there are people that are involved in the vape trade in the room. And there are lots more around the hall, and I'm going to talk about nothing just for a second or two so that we start to get a few more of these people sitting down to hear about what I want to tell you about. So, the Independent British Vape Trade Association. What is it? What's all that about? Why do we exist? Why have I never joined this strange being that is a trade association? Why am I not involved? Well, do you know what? If you're in the vape trade, you have already received benefit from that association, whether you are a member or not. It's a really important thing to think about. We are there for that very reason, that we protect this industry. We recognise that the vape trade in the UK is split between two things. Both sectors have a right to be there, but one is a tobacco-owned sector and another is an independent sector. And independent businesses are completely different from tobacco businesses. So really, really important to remember that we look after only the independent sector. It means there are some things that we can't do, but it means there are a hell of a lot of things that we can do. And that has made the real difference. So what is IBVTA? Well, it's a tiny thing, but at the same time, it's a huge thing. So at its tiniest, IBVTA, and one of the people who is part of the tiniest IBVTA is sitting right in front of me, and that's our CEO, Gillian Golden. It's 2.5 people in an office in London. It's not even really in Westminster. But if you're a trade association, you have to pretend that it's in Westminster. That's really, really important. But it's those 2.5 people. But what is it really? What it is really is its members. So membership of the IBVTA is probably representative of about 300 vape stores around the UK, maybe a few more. That's really important. Now, those members pay fees. They do very little apart from receive the good that we do. But we do keep them involved. We do listen to them. So very important for that. The other thing that the IBVTA is its manufacturer and distributor members. Now, these are bigger businesses. And these form the backbone of everything that the IBVTA does. So we've got some of the very big independent UK vape businesses that have been working, some of us since 2015, on trying to make sure that vaping is a competitive market, but that we maintain the playing field. And I think everyone will have seen what happens when the playing field's not properly maintained, because it's just happened in the USA, and the knock-on in the UK is being felt. But there is a lack of regulation in the USA that is to be followed by some absolutely brutal regulation, which kind of starts properly in anger in May next year. Why did that not happen in the UK? Well, there's one good reason why that didn't happen in the UK, and that is that we had a responsible and credible industry sector that was able to represent itself to government and to regulators. So the reason no one's dying from vape products in the UK is that we don't let those products in because we have much firmer regulation. And were any of the press who have been so irresponsible in the way they've talked about happenings in the USA to actually approach properly Public Health England or MHRA or the Department of Health, they would be able to say, no, actually, we know the vape industry. We've been working with them for 4 years. They're very well regulated. They notify their products properly. Yes, there are a few people on the extremes that aren't doing things properly. But do you know what? In the main, the UK has a properly responsible vape industry. Now, when I first started talking to government about these things, and I need to demonstrate the other hat, as well as doing a lot of work for IBVTA, I also happen to be technical director for Totally Wicked. And in 2015, Totally Wicked was famous for the fact that we were in the middle of taking the European Union to court, because we didn't think it was reasonable that vape products were captured by the Tobacco Products Directive. I still don't. But it didn't matter because it meant that suddenly, if someone said, I'm from Totally Wicked, anyone who's a civil servant or involved in government is going, oh God, those people that are willing to spend 7 figures on taking people to court when they're doing something unjust. We'll listen to them. And the first thing they said to me was, form a trade association, because we cannot talk to individual businesses. And guess what? We're not talking to tobacco businesses. We can't. The WHO has this thing called the Framework Convention on Tobacco Control that says we're not allowed to. So we did. And we got a few businesses together and started to create some shops, and we formed this great thing called the IBVTA. Now, the IBVTA and what it does, also really important, because back then we were very, very much involved in negotiation and producing a reasonable path through TPD, the Tobacco Products Directive, into TRPR, the Tobacco and Related Products Regulations, and do you know, weirdly enough, the Department of Health and MHRA and eventually Public Health England, they actually consulted with us to make sure that the way that the regulations were interpreted was not going to destroy the entire industry. That could not have happened without IBVTA, so that's really important. So the question comes now, what is IBVTA doing now? Well, let's start with what we're not doing. We're not taking full-page ads in newspapers to say that everything else in this newspaper is wrong, because that would be really counterproductive. That doesn't work. What happens is that your words get twisted, all your interviews get twisted, and that just has a negative effect. So for anyone involved in the vape industry, if someone walks through your shop door and says to you, I'm really worried about this health stuff of vaping that I'm reading about in the USA, the first thing to say is there is a really good reason why what has happened in the USA has not happened in the UK. And I missed Dan Marchand's talk earlier, but I'm going to take a wild guess that Dan will have talked about the difficulties in the USA around introducing products without having any proper governance over them. And that is a huge mistake. It's not about vape. It's not about vape at all. It's about producing a legal market for something that is incredibly expensive, produces you a load of tax revenues, but unfortunately at the same time produces a black market. And the black market is unregulated and has caused problems. That's not happening in the UK. So the things that you need to say to any store owner is, this is not the USA. In the UK, our products are thoroughly regulated. So the 3 things that you need to know, Mr. Customer, are Mrs. Customer or Miss or Ms. Customer. The 3 things you need to know are, 1, vaping is safe. There is loads of evidence that vaping as it is done in the UK is safe. Number 2, vaping is effective. Really good paper from January this year showing that vaping is at least twice as effective as any other way of giving up smoking. Number 3, there is no such thing as passive vaping. You cannot make someone ill by having them breathe the vapor that you've got in your room. Loads of documented evidence around all of those things. So make sure those come across. That is really important. Now, the last thing I'm going to say, I haven't used my 15 minutes, but we're doing okay on time, evidently. The last thing I'm going to say is that IBVTA is still doing things that are very important within all of this. So the important thing is we have open door communication with the Department of Health, with MHRA, and with Public Health England. And that kind of communication cannot come from the tobacco industry. It only comes from us, and it only really comes from a trade association. So we are having those conversations in the background that should mean not only that we have had limited damage done to our sector compared to the USA, and I know if you're in the vape trade, it probably doesn't feel like limited damage at the moment, because this has definitely been the biggest hit on our industry since 2012. This is an unnecessary disaster caused by, I'd like to say it's just irresponsible media, but it's not just irresponsible media. The CDC have been absolutely devastatingly, horrendously irresponsible in the way that they have dealt with all of this. If the CDC announcements had been anything like sensible, 1, they would have protected public health for people who do use THC and do so legally in the USA, and 2, it would have not have had the effect on people who are using vaping to give up smoking in the USA. So that is a horrendous thing. But we will continue to work in the UK to try to get things back into a reasonable place. Try to get things back to how it might be that we get more of the 6 million remaining smokers using vaping to give up, because vaping has already saved, and I know the figures say 50 to 70,000 people a year give up using vaping. That's rubbish. There's at least 200,000 a year. It's really easy to work it out. There's about 4 million people in the UK who aren't smoking because of vaping. Now, some of them have given up vaping since, and that's fine. I accept that as a journey, that you start as a smoker, you become a dual user, you become a vapor only, and actually, yeah, it's reasonable. At some point at the end of that, why would I try and block anyone from the route out of the whole lot? That's fair. But we want to get more people onto that journey. So if you do have a vape store, or if you are involved in vaping, what you need is a piece of paper, a booklet. And we've got a few of these around. Now, this is really important. This is assured guidance. This is not just guidance produced by the IBVTA. This is guidance that was produced by the IBVTA, and it sounds like a Marks and Spencer advert, doesn't it? This is not just guidance. But we ran this past MHRA, and we ran it past Department of Health. And then they said, that's probably not enough. You really need to have the Chartered Trading Standards Institute have a look at that. So we ran it past CTSI as well. And they said, what you need is a primary authority partnership with a trading standards agency. So we started working with Kent Trading Standards. So not only is this really good guidance on how you can run a vape store legally and do everything correctly, and we've not done the same thing for an e-liquid producer, because that would be a telephone book thickness, and there should be some standards that actually support that at some point. But you can know that if you open this book and find all of the things within it you're doing right, your vape store is very protected. Better than that, if you join the IBVTA, when you have a trading standards officer come round and say, I'm not sure if that's right in that book, not only have you got the book, but you've also got a primary authority partnership with Kent Trading Standards through the IBVTA at no extra cost, that Kent Trading Standards will storm down and say, no, this is how we think it is as well. And at that point, any trading standards officer who thinks otherwise has a bit of a problem on their hands. So it's a very reasonable way of doing things. So really, really valuable to join this association. I make not a penny from it. I just put loads into it because that's what we do as a business. But it's still really important to me. Thank you very much for listening. Ashley's going to dash around with the microphone.
Yes,
and try and
do we
find
have any
someone who's got a really
questions
good
from
question.
the audience? Oh, come on. Don't be shy. All right, I have a question. So if I'm a shop,
Yeah.
for if we can't get our hands on this, if I'm a shop, what are my key components? What do I really need to be focused on right now? I'm sure employee and customer education, but what can I do as a shop owner, just off the top of your head, the most important key things to think of?
Most important key thing any store can do at the moment is to make sure that they appear responsible and credible to any
You say
customers that
appear,
come in.
so divulge.
Yeah, because it's not enough just to be responsible and credible. You need to appear to be it as well. So just doing it is not enough. So you need to keep your shop clean. You need to keep your shop inviting. You probably need not to have a fug of vapour through the shop that makes people think, not really sure about this place. And by all means, have another room at the back where people can cloud chase, but you need to be welcoming to people who are coming in that are giving up smoking. Because let's face it, 90% of our walk-ins are people who are smoking and don't want to be smoking anymore. So you've got to make it inviting to everyone. So great that there are a few people that are thinking about vaping as an alternative lifestyle, but in the greater scheme of things, there's a little bit of a risk with that. And the risk is that you don't appeal to the everyday consumer.
This is a theme that I've been seeing in the UK, which is, of course, we appreciate the hobbyist vapor, but moving away from that and really targeting the smokers that need this technology the most at this point, that need the exposure to this.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you have a store and you have smoking cessation services in the area of your store, give them a call. Now, there's an unfortunate thing that they might ask if you're a member of the IBVTA. They ask that question because it's a really easy way of them knowing that you've signed up to trading responsibly and that you have nothing to do with the tobacco industry, which is a great place for them because they don't want irresponsible players involved and it's a PR disaster.
So you do not allow any tobacco into the association?
No businesses are allowed to be members of the IBVTA if they have any tobacco influence or shareholding.
That's good to know, and that helps you not dilute your message. Anyone else? Hey.
Sorry, yeah. That's the Gillian's just... I couldn't work out what the hand signals were for, but I really, really should have said this. As well as this, and I hope everyone who's watching this on live feeds or anywhere else will get this, as well as this being an amazing trade association, we are also currently offering the first 6 months of membership absolutely free, which is a really, really good reason to join. So I've told you that lots of vape stores are already getting benefit from this. You get even more benefit for it without it costing you a penny yet. And that is a deal. That is a really good deal.
So obviously the business association is primarily retail owners, but is there an incentive for brands or distributors to join as well?
Is there, Julian? Yes, there is. Okay, so there's 6 months free for distributors and importers who are coming in as new members. So we would like all of those to get involved. Now, for anyone who is actually involved in manufacture or is running a big factory or a big distribution operation, one of the most fundamental things that we're working very hard on at the moment is standardization. So some of you may be aware that in 2015, the first standard for e-cigarettes was published by the BSI. I even know the number because I was on the steering group for it. So it's BSI PAS 54115:2015. Since then, things have moved on a pace, and standards are actually being developed in ISO and in CEN, which is the European Standards Organisation. So IBVTA currently has a total of 3 people working on these standards committees and contributing, and it means that our manufacturing members actually have sight of these standards as they are being developed. Now, the bar does not go down. The bar cannot go down. Basically, we need to get better at making e-liquid. It was probably good enough in 2012 that you made something that was less harmful than smoking. Well, guess what? The eventual aim has to be that we make something that is no more harmful than breathing fresh air, because we need to be protecting the health, not just of the smokers who take it up, but the very, very tiny percentage of non-smokers who might try vaping. We've got to look after all of those. So those standards have to get better, but IBVTA is always at the core of all of those things.
And if I join in 6 months, what assets can I expect to receive and support?
All of the above. I think I've just told you about.
Okay, and so companies can call you directly, and they can speak with someone on staff if they have any questions about regulations, compliance.
Yeah, absolutely. We have a fully staffed office. We also have a steering group that involves 6 of us from different businesses, so we have an accumulation of knowledge. We generate some bulletins and some help and support and guidance that goes out to members. It's basically there is always something going on. So the 2 that we're working on at the moment, co-author, we're looking at helping people with smoking cessation. James at the back there is working with me on one of those, and we've got people from other businesses that are working on advice to importers and to retailers around battery safety, making sure people source batteries properly.
Well, I'm sold. How do I join?
www.ibvta.org.uk.
Got it. All right, everyone give it up for Liam Humberstone. Thank you so much.
Great, thank you very
Humberstone, I'm
much.
sorry. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
From the Independent British Vape Trade Association. Yes, I nailed it. I want one, actually, so please, can you just set one right by my bag? Well, thank you, sir. I can't wait to dive in. All right, very important work that you guys are doing, so thank you so much. I know what it's like to donate your time for a very good cause, so we appreciate you. You're very important in this sector, and I hope everyone takes you up on that 6 months free offer and goes to ibvta.org.co.uk or just .org.uk. Got it. All right. For 6 months free, so make sure you support your local trade association. Thank you, Liam.